Hi everyone. We're just gonna get started in 5 minutes. Just wait for some people, they might be late. So we'll start at 12:05. Thanks. Okay, I think well, although it's 12:04, I think we could start the session right now. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Pretty good?
Awesome.
Good.
Awesome, I like that. Are you guys excited?
Yep.
Okay, let's get started. Gonna I have two monitors, so if I look over here, I'm just looking at another monitor. I'm gonna share my screen now. Yeah, Carson, you have a question?
I did the homework assignments, but I think I might have forgotten to send them in.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I'm here. I'll talk about that. So everyone, if regarding the exercises from the last session, there's gonna be like a Google form. I think one of the mentors could put it in the chat, but that's where you could submit your assignment solutions or your assignment submissions, sorry. Uh, yep. So if everyone looks in the chat, Mihawk just put the exercise submission form. So may take note of that. Yeah. Okay. Can everyone still see my screen though?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, just take note of the submission form. And with that, let's get started. I'll turn this on. Session 2. Okay, so for today's session, we're just gonna review a little bit from the stuff that we learned from the previous session. We're also gonna be expanding more on the topic of variables, updating variables, so an important concept called variable scope, and there's like some other bonus features, some tidbits that could be helpful for you guys in your final projects, and more examples. So recall if you want to share your code, there's go to like this icon here on Trinket, and then you could share your link or email and whatnot. So let's review last week's session. So whenever we're writing code in Trinket, remember that we need to use there's two important functions here. So there's something called def setup, and this runs just once at the very start of the program, and you have something called def draw. And this repeats infinitely or cycles through infinitely many times throughout our program. Yep, on repeat. And I guess this code right here prints out an ellipse or a circle. But we also, although it's a bit towards the end, there's two important variables called mouse X and mouse Y. And as you could guess, it tells us the location of, say, the cursor on your screen. But these variables only work inside of the draw function. So just keep that in mind. And also another thing you should keep in mind is you see these little indents here. Those are very important. It tells the computer that this code down here, like say print background ellipse, is going to be used in the draw function. Okay. So we touched on variables last week, and so let's continue on that topic. So remember, a variable is something that could hold a certain value. And for example, my a variable could be height, and I'm around 175 centimeters, so you can make a variable Adrian's height equals 175. And just like here, and just like I guess regular algebra, variables can be combined like using addition or subtraction. So look at this example. We have the our first variable is just a, and it has the value of 20, and we also have b, which is the value of 30. And as you can see, you could also add them, and this will print 50, multiply them. And another thing to note is that it also follows the order of operations. So as you can see here, the statement in the parentheses will be evaluated first, so that'll be 10 divided by 5, and of course that would print 2. So you might be wondering why use variables? I mean, can I just like hard code everything? I mean, you can, but it also makes your life a lot easier. And a rule of thumb is to always use variables for values that need to be updated or tracked over time. So let's like think of like a couple of examples. Like if you played a game, like a player's HP is definitely something worth tracking. You might also want to figure out the player's position and also like the score that they have in the game. And then on the more technical side, you might have like the enemy's spawn rate, enemy strength, number of characters on screen. So variables are very useful and they're pretty much everywhere in games, math, and computers. So although if we go back to the previous slide, although we created a variable with the name a, it's not that descriptive per se. It's like okay, what does A do or what does A mean? So we want to name variables that have meaning and also that follow a certain convention. So make sure to use these rules when we're naming variables. So remember, a variable cannot include any spaces. So instead, you could also, instead of using spaces, you could use underscores. And the first character must be one of the letters A through Z. It can't be a number. Or I guess in this case, it could also be an underscore. But a variable can't also be one of Python's like keywords. It's like special words like sorry, print, import, def, or global. And we'll learn about what those other ones do soon. And remember, Python and a lot of computers in general, they're very case sensitive. So score with the lowercase is not the same as score with the uppercase. So just keep that in mind. Okay, we're gonna go into our first quick question on Top Hat. So let's look at it. Let's look at this one. Using mouse X, arithmetic operators, and the ellipse, make the size of the circle proportional to how far left or right the mouse is on the screen. So think about I'm going to give you a hint. Think about like what variable we're going to be using to manipulate. Now I'm going to open up the Top Hat. Well, oh, okay. Sorry about that. There we go. Can everyone see that? This is the Go to the Beginner Saturday session. So I'll give you around 2 minutes for that. Oh, there's some questions in the chat. I think your mentors could help you with that, but the link is on, I think it's even on this session one, uh, the session zero slides. But yeah, I'll give you 1 more minute. I believe you also have access to the slides, so you could even see what the top hat question is. But if you look at the options here, like what are we modifying? Just think about that. Oh, and if you guys look in the chat, Lyshell sent something or sent the link for the top hat. So check that out. 30 seconds. Okay. We got 4 people left. Please send something. Oh, is D defined? Oh, sorry. LESD, D would be like, I guess, would be the diameter of the circle. But the submissions are close. So let's look at the correct answer. Let's look at the responses actually. Oh, okay. That seems most people chose C. And you are correct. It is it is option C. And this is because if we let's go back to the slides here. We want to make the size of the circle proportional to how far left or right the mouse is on the screen. Oh yeah, Elias. And and if we want something to do with the mouse's position, we could if we want to use something related to the mouse's position, we have to use either mouse X or mouse Y. And since we're only concerned with how far left or right the mouse is, we're going to be using something related to mouse X. So that's why when we go here, when we mouse when here, when we're changing the diameter or the size of the ellipse, we're gonna use mouse X and we're gonna times it by some value. Anyways, I hope you understand that explanation. So let's go back to variables. So when we're defining a variable, when we want to set something as a variable, we have to use the equal sign. And just like in math, we know that the equal sign is like this, the value on the left has the same value on the right. But as you can see here, it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more specifics about it, but the left-hand side is set to whatever the right-hand side is, and it doesn't work the other way around. So if you look, oh, I'll turn on my laser pointer. If you look, if you look to this red box here, this does not make any sense. This does. So we could set, like I was saying earlier, we could set your height is equal to 170. And another thing is that you could update it with itself. So we initially said that the height is 170, but we could tell the computer, okay, we want the value, we want to redefine a new value for height. And in this case, maybe next year you grow 5 centimeters. You could say that the new height is equal to the previous height, 170 plus 5. And that's why when you print this, you get the height is 175. But you could also overwrite the value by just using the equal sign again. The current content of variable by changing its value. So I hope you understand that. But you see what we were doing here earlier? Height equals the previous height plus 5. You could write that, but programmers are really lazy, so that's why we have shorthand. So yeah, to save time in reading, we use this variable notation. So when we say x plus equals 5, it really just means that we're gonna take the new value for x is the previous value plus 5. And then if you do minus equals, you could do x. It's basically the same thing, but for minus. And although not mentioned on the slide, you could also, I mean, there's plus and minus here. You could also do something, you could also do an asterisk and then you could define it for multiplication as well. So we're gonna go into our first exercise. I'm gonna go over it here first before we go into our breakout rooms. Oh, sorry. And before that, someone had a general question, Kanto, about this shorthand. There is nothing for divide though. Uh, I would imagine because multiplication, if you wanted to divide something by 4, you could just multiply it by 0.25 if that makes any sense, Kanto. But there's this one exists for multiplication as well, but not division. Okay, sorry about that. Let's go into like our first exercise. So let's look at these two drawing squares here, and you could try copying the code right now. And they're using the same x variable here when we're defining it. See rect xy. So try it out. But consider the previous code. Can you make a diagonal square pattern just as pictured? And just some words and just some food for thought. How could you change the x and y values to change the location of each square so that they line up just right? And look at these variables here. Try not to hard code anything, but just try to think about how I could maybe manipulate or change these variables so I could end up with this guy. And again, more food for that. What is the relationship between the two adjacent squares' coordinates here? Look right here. So this is x and y, but then I guess this would be x, but then this top right corner over here, it would be defined as x plus width because we're moving to the right. But since we're also moving up, we have to minus the y component. Oh, and with that, let's get started in our breakout rooms. I'm gonna stop sharing. And yeah, everyone go to your breakout rooms.
Hi guys. So for the people over here, could you put the name that you registered with in the chat or tell me what group you're in so I can assign you to your groups? Amy, you should have gotten a message to join your group. Junkai and Riley, I sent you guys a message to join another group because your mentors are absent. So can you join those groups for today? Oh, disappeared before I could click it. Yeah, I'll send it again. Group 12. Yeah, I'll assign you. Oh, wait, group 12. Okay, so I believe your mentor is not here today. So I'm just going to assign you to a random group just for today. So you should have gotten the message and you can join that group. Hi, Ellie.
Heck, it's not letting me share my screen again. It's
Ah,
giving me,
oops.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. I've given everybody permission, so you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Tyra. Is there a problem? Oh,
Okay. I think everyone could see my screen again. Oh, yeah, everyone. It's like, so yeah, I hope you guys kind of understood what we're asking you here, but remember that I mean, there's the X component here, but you should also be modifying the Y component. And it should, since we're moving from here to here, keep in mind we should be subtracting from the Y component. If you remember from the coordinate system, so going from top to bottom, we add to the Y component, but if we go from bottom to top, we subtract from the Y component. Anyways, I hope you guys understood that exercise, but we're going to move on to another important concept. It's something called variable scope. Oh, something called someone said something. I use W and H variable. Yeah, that's fine. As long as you know what you're doing. But we're gonna cover variable scope here. And if you recall, when we use def draw, we might be using some variables in def draw or def setup, but variables that exist inside of these functions, they don't exist outside of it, or like you can't access them. So, but variables outside of all of the functions are called global variables. But if you want to use a variable outside of def draw and def setup, you have to use the global keyword. So let's look at a practical example. So let's look at this function here. And let's say we create a variable x inside setup right here. No, this variable x will only exist inside of setup, because if we try to access this variable in draw, say we wanted to print x, it will give us an error. And it's going to say that it can't access that, or it can't access that variable scope, because draw doesn't know what x is, if that makes sense. So if we define a variable in a function, like in setup, you can't access it in other functions or on the outside. So how do you like circumvent this? Well, if we wanted to access, if we defined a global variable or a variable on the outside of the function, and in this case, x equals 0, you see how x is outside setup and draw. If we want to use it, inside setup and draw, all we have to do is use global x. That means we're telling the computer, this, we're gonna use we're gonna use a variable from the outside, basically. So in this case, we do create x outside of setup and draw, and we use the global keyword to tell setup and draw which x that we want to use. And that's why, but no, you have to specify global x both in setup and in draw. So let's look at a more practical examples. So let's create x as a global variable. In this case, x has the value of 10. I mean, we set up our window size, and by doing global x, it gives us access to this variable inside draw. And then after that, you could use x like a regular variable here. So another thing to note, just a bit more about terminology. If I'm gonna go back to these slides here, if uh, remember this code that kind of like it would give out an error. So x, if it's defined inside setup, or if a variable is defined inside of a function, it's called a local variable, because it's kind of like local to setup in this case. But when it's outside of the function, it's called a global variable. It's like all around, if that makes sense. That's just another thing about terminology you might hear if you're reading more about Python or just programming in general. So with that, let's do our second top hat question. So basically, we're just gonna ask you guys, does this following code work as expected? And does it make the circle move to the right? So remember these hashtags here are like comments, and I encourage you to add comments. And let's see what the guy was saying. Move a circle to the right by incrementing x by 1 each draw cycle. So look at the code first. Create x, we increment it by plus equals 1, and we draw it. But does that actually work as we intended to? Who knows? Okay, I'm gonna open up Top Hat. Sorry about that. Oh, I'll open it up soon. Quick question. Ooh. Okay, there we go. There we go. I opened it up. I hope you guys could see. So just another thing about Top Hat. If you can, maybe just DM, like direct message your mentors and they could definitely help you out with that. Oh,
Could you go back to it so I can see it again?
oh, okay. So this is just the question. Oh, this is the question here. And I believe you have access to the slides. I believe you do. Or maybe a mentor could drop it into the chat. But this is the quick question, and you could access it on Top Hat. Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna move back to Top Hat. Sorry. Oop. But Lyshell just what like one of the mentors just put it in the chat. The Google link to the slides. While you guys are answering that, someone just had a question in the chat. Could you please explain how global helps draw the rectangles diagonally? For the previous exercise, you don't actually need global variables. You could just define it using local variables, and all you had to do was, or from what I understand, you just have to add like multiple rec statements. But yeah. Although using the global, like, I guess variables, the global keyword might not seem, uh, like, I guess, very very insightful right now, but as you do more programming, it's quite helpful actually. But we just want to introduce this concept to you guys so when you after say Schulich Ignite, you want to do more of your own programming, you're a bit comfortable with those topics. So let's look at the responses. Oh, it's a bit distributed. Swallowing code work as expected. And let's see the correct answer. Yes, no, it does not work. Variable x will be redeclared in each iteration of the draw and the circle won't move. So let's look in the code again. So we have draw background x equals 10, x plus equals 1. And that's true. It kind of increments it once, but I'm going to bring out the code for this one. And I hope you guys can see it. But as you can see here, I'm going to stop. Oh, sorry. I'm just going to copy paste this code here. Oh. Sorry. I forgot one more thing. You have to press run. But if you see the code down here, see how I printed X? Because I want to know if X is changing or not. Because we want to move the circle to the right. It is not actually. It's just a constant value. So how would you like go about fixing this code? Well, you see this X equals 10 up here. Every time, since draw is a loop, I mean, we could complete one loop and then we draw it at 11. But the thing is, when we loop back, we're saying, oh, actually, I want to redefine X again. So it's like this x equals 10 is accidentally restarting our x value every time we loop around. So in order to fix that, we could just delete that there. And we could put that variable on the outside. And we therefore make it a global variable. So like, but then how do we access it? How do we use it? You have to, oh, sorry. You have to use global. See right there? And now if we do run it, there we go. It's moving to the right. And as you can see down here, the x value is indeed changing. So that's another thing. If you're having trouble with your code, for now, just try using like print statements because you could then know which if your code is following the values that you wanted. So that's just another little tip on debugging in general. So if you're debugging something, if you have an error, try using a bunch of print statements if possible. So we did cover variables, and like I said before, variables can change other variables. For example, in two variables, we could store the player's X position and the player's speed position. And let's look at a more practical example. Cool. Say that we have the circle ellipse, right? And we know that ellipse is defined using the X component, the Y component, and these two parameters here are just the size. Well, if we want to move it like from the left to the right, all we have to do is just adjust the X value. And in this case, we could just modify it by a speed. So here we just say that for this case, we say that the speed is equal to 3. That means that every iteration of draw, we're gonna draw a new ellipse 3 pixels to the right, 3 pixels to the right, 3 pixels to the right, blah, 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 blah. And say that we have speed equals 5. We're now basically saying we're gonna draw it 5 pixels to the right. And as you can see, it gets a bit faster down here. And I mean, we talked about speed. Another thing that you could modify, you could add to your code is gravity. So say we have a y value, we could just do y plus equals 1. And then after that, you could just see the ball drop right there. Y plus equals speed. And there we go. So we're going to go into exercise 2, and I'm just going to go over the problem before we go to our breakout rooms. But I want you guys to write a program. See the circle on the right? Draw the circle that moves diagonally down and to the bottom right until it goes out of the window and disappears. Do that first, but if you could already do that, see if you could gradually change it from red to blue. And these are some prompting questions, just some word for thought, or just some food for thought. Both its X and Y coordinates need to be updated. So that means if we're modifying the X and Y, you have to use plus equals or minus equals, whatever that we need. And if you guys are wondering about the color of the circle, like with the bonus objective, remember the RGB system? How do we like modify that? And with that, let's go into our breakout rooms. Oh.
Hello. So for the people still in the main session, Junkai sent you like an invite to a breakout room so you can join that to continue with the exercise. And the person called Dot, I don't know what your name is, so if you can send me what group you're in. Oh, okay. Hey guys, so we just have 10 minutes left in the breakout rooms. If you're done with the exercises, feel free to go back and just chat, play some games, look at the homework exercises. Uh, yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's the question?
I have a code from one of the exercises that we did today, and I have it
Hmm.
exactly how the mentor have it, and my trinket won't do anything.
Okay, yeah, we can try to troubleshoot that. Can you share your screen and show me what it looks like?
Let's put my setting. Settings.
So on the toolbar, there should be like a little green icon with an up arrow.
Oh, I'm on my phone for
Oh, I
this.
see. Okay, so I can't tell you without looking at it what exactly the problem might be, but some
I'm
things to make sure is that make sure when you open a trinket that you select Python and not Python 3. That's like a big issue.
I
Uh,
have selected Python.
okay. And then make sure that there's no indentation issues. So sometimes what happens is if you have like an extra space before a line of code, that causes issues.
Oh, sorry, Mel. Jacob, you can just send me an email, or your own mentor, doesn't matter. And but I'm thinking maybe it's just because you are not saving the code. You have to save the code at first and then run that. Are you doing
I
that?
just did that, and nothing happened. And I have all of the same indentations and spacing that the mentor had for the diagonal black square activity.
Okay, so yeah, I just recommend giving us like a visual of what your code looks like. Again, it's really hard to like guess at what it could be. So feel free to send an email to Faraz or like by Discord or something. Um, and we'll help you troubleshoot that.
It does not want to let me turn on my video because I have to change my permissions for it, but I can't because when I go into my home screen, I can't access any of my apps.
Okay. So no problem about that. Again, yeah, just like after the session's over, shoot us like a quick email. You can CC me if you want to, up to you. And then yeah, Faraz will help you troubleshoot that.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll do that after.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
And let me
no
know if
worries.
there's any other questions.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, and we're back. You guys got that exercise sorted out. I'm gonna share my screen. So yeah, just some tidbits, I guess, for this exercise. Try to. Oh, am I? No, I'm speaking. Okay, good. I thought I was on mute for a second, but yeah, just modify. The code isn't very long. Just try to put the how I would do it is put the ellipse function in the draw section, and then you'd loop over and change the x and the y values. So yeah, that's just my tidbit on the exercise. But I mean, we could draw stuff. I mean, that's fine. But like, what about text and some other features? So Trinket also supports text, and I guess you can draw lines in this case. So to write text, you could use text size, and text size, it's a the parameter that it uses is just the font size, really. Text align is it's a bit difficult to explain, but it helps like align your text if you have multiple mini texts in your like drawing screen. And then obviously you put text hello, the X and Y location of the top left, as you can see in this example. And that's how you'd print it out in your screen. And if you wanted to draw lines, it's a bit straightforward. You just specify what color you like with your line. So in this case, remember the RGB. So R is red, G green, blue. In this case, we just want it completely red, so that's why it's 255. And for the line, the first two, I guess, like parameters here, they define the first point, and then the second, these pairs of numbers here define your endpoint. Okay. And we could combine text with variables. So how would you make the text move diagonally across the screen while also increasing its size? So you sort of apply the same logic as exercise number 2. So we could define our text size as some global variable font size, and then we want to print out our text at a specific x and y coordinate. And we could, like the previous examples that we're talking about, you could modify the X and Y using a speed or some values here. And another thing that you could do is you could add like fading colors. So, so in this case, when we're using fill, it's like zero, it's RGB. Well, you could choose green to be some sort of variable, and you could just add on to it, as you can see here. So over time, you increase the value of green, if that makes any sense. But I'm just going to go over some code. But since we were talking about fading colors, that's actually how you do that sort of that bonus objective in exercise number 2. It's this line down here. So as you're increasing from as so we want it to shift from red to blue. So you'd set like to the maximum value of red, and then over time you'd like subtract from the red value, while at the same time you'd increase the blue value. So that's why we do 255 minus x, or some value that we're changing. And this would gradually make the red value approach 0. But for this x value, we're just gradually increasing it. So that's why when you do run the code, it changes color. And that's how you could toy around with variables and colors as well. And I'm gonna do this little I have this little snippet down here. And I'm just gonna show you some stuff you could do with the text function. So we do processing, we do our setup, we define our window size, but we also, in this case, we could define these global variables here. In this case, we want the hello. We're gonna print out hello in the right over here. First, we want it to start out in like this top left corner over here. And we want it to initially have a font size of 0. Or you could do 1, but when something like that. But and we're gonna increase the font size and the location. We're gonna change the location of where hello is printed on the screen here. So obviously, in order to do that, well, in order to do that, you have to add X, Y, you have to redefine. You gotta add on to the font size and the X and Y values. So if we look over here, wow, and then the hello like explodes all over the screen. Another, excuse me, another tip when you're fetching when you want to access global variables, you could do it, excuse me, you could do it in a shorthand like this instead of having to do all this. Instead, you could just separate it by a couple commas and you'll be fine. Oh, well, that's basically oh,
Hey Adrian, we had a question in chat. They're asking what does baseline mean? So this was on slide 28.
oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Thank you. Oh, baseline? I'm still a bit unsure myself. If oh, I'm still a bit unsure myself. I did try reading it earlier or before today's session, but it kind of just defines like I guess like I think it's the center. So if we had multiple text here, we could center it around a specific X value by defining baseline. But let's see. Kanto, you did bring up a good question. So if, I mean, we have these functions down here, but if you're really curious about some of the other functions that Trinket has to offer, you could search up the documentation. And if you go to a new tab, you could do, for Trinket, you have to do processing.py, and you could do like documentation, oh, something like that. And you see this first search here, first result here. If you click onto it, this processing.py, it tells you it gives you a bunch of like different functions that you could use. Like we didn't cover, I mean, we covered ellipse, line, but turns out there's something called triangle that could be interesting. And you were wondering about text align. Well, gonna search for it, and you see text align here. Boom, you could read a bit more about it. Although it's a bit lengthy, you could read a lot more about it. So baseline, it's sort of like is used to like vertically align it. Yeah. Oh, and Mahak sent something in the chat. And that's basically the entire description of it. But if you're curious about uh the different functions associated with Trinket, search up processing pi documentation or like reference, something like that. And you'll get a list of a bunch of these stuff and you could explore it on your own. But yeah, that's I didn't actually today I didn't really know what baseline meant, but I read over the documentation and I got the gist of it. With that, that pretty much wraps up the session. There's remember to submit your exercises through our Google form submission here, and they are due a week after your session. And yeah, these are just some of the exercises you could do, and they have some Schulich Ignite points. Since we're at the end of the session, I just want to answer some questions. Spendan, you had one question. Tanisha, I'll get to you later. Could you please run the hello code without the trail? Oh, okay. So someone in the chat was mentioning that like if you look right here, oh my goodness, like it kind of explodes. Like how do you remove the trail? How do you just make it slide neatly. Since I have time here, I could go over it. So the way that draw works is say you have a circle, and then say you wanted to draw another circle. What draw actually does, it just draws on top of the circle. And then you draw on top of the circle, draw on top of the circle. It doesn't actually erase the previous circle. It just draws on top of it. So in order to remove the trail, what you can do here is you could sort of like, okay, I'm gonna print out hello, and then I'm going to clean the window. I'm gonna make it all white, and then I'm gonna add hello, and then I'm gonna make it all white, and then add hello. So you could do that by doing background. In this case, you do 255. And that's how you get that. So I hope that answers your question. I see that there's a lot of questions in the chat. I'm sorry, I'll go over through them. Uh, oh, actually no. Oh, okay, never mind. Tanisha, sorry, I'm gonna answer your question now. Oh, Tanisha, you have your hand raised up.
Is the submission line for submitting both of the uh, are the just for fun exercises, like do you have to do those, or are those do you it's just if you have extra time?
I believe those are just if you have extra time, but I would recommend doing them. I mean,
Okay. Thank
for
you.
practice. Any other questions? Yeah, so if you look in the chat, there's link to the submission form, the exercise submission form, as well as the slides that I have on here. But I think Mahak oh, is that the content for today? I'm not too sure.
Yeah, so that's the end of this session. Um, we could go into breakout rooms again if you guys want, or you guys can leave early. That's up to you. We don't have any more content to cover, but we'll be here to answer any questions.
Speaking of questions, Yusuf, you do have a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the submission form. In it, we can put the first and second exercise, and then there's also the weekly challenge and the final project. Those for the final project one, obviously there isn't one now, right? So if we hand it in, it'd be anything.
Mahak, can you answer that question? I'm a
Yeah,
bit.
so for the final project, you guys don't have to submit anything yet. That will come up when we do the actual final project. As for the weekly challenge, if you go to Discord, we post the weekly challenges regularly. So like midweek, you'll see a challenge and then you can do it and submit it along with your exercises. You can also find the weekly challenge on the Instagram page. So the Schulich Ignite Instagram, if you go onto it, you'll see like a little update with the weekly challenge. And again, the weekly challenge isn't mandatory, but it will get you like an extra 50 Ignite points. So if you're like looking to win the Ignite leaderboards, then go for it.
Oh, yeah, Vlad, you have another question?
Where do you submit the weekly exercises from the slides again?
Mahak, can you take over?
Yeah, so I will put the submission form for the exercises in the chat again, but if you lose this link, you can always go to the Schulich Ignite website. It's just schulichignite.com, and over there you'll see like submit exercises, like a little option, and underneath you'll find like Pythonic Lava. Click on that one and it'll take you to a Google form where you can just copy the link to your trinket and put it in.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? And we have 10 minutes, so yeah, this is technically end of the session, so if you don't feel like sticking around, we'll see ya. But yeah, any questions, just ask away.
I have a question.
Yeah, Arnush.
For the homeworks, like, do we have to use our creativity or we should just like make exactly what is shown? Like,
I think we're a bit there's some le there's some leeway with that, but yeah, try it would be nice to maybe add your own spin to it. Yeah.
Yeah, so for the exercises, as long as you follow the functionality, so like if it's a moving circle, as long as your circle's moving, you can add more to it. Like, if you could add different colors, you can add like a if you know how to do that, you can add backgrounds or whatever. So like use your creative freedom, but follow the functionality that the code is showing.
okay, thank you. And also like, are all of the things that you want from us in the homeworks, are all of them covered in decisions? Like, we do not have to like search for them. Like some of them kind of look hard. I don't know.
Yeah, so with the homework exercises, they're solely based on the content that we have covered. So there's no new information that you have to search for on your own. Just look at the slides and you should be able to do them. If you still have any questions, my recommendation is go to your mentors, ask them because they'll be able to, guide you best. And yeah, Karsten, I see your hand raised. Is there another question?
Yeah. Some of the homework, it seems like there's just the same thing twice.
Oh.
So I just did it once. You want me to just submit the link twice, or?
So the first two exercises that are mandatory should be completely different. So yeah, you can do those. But if the just for fun exercises are repeated, you don't have to submit them again.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Mike, I didn't catch you. I'm sorry. Can you say it again? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, so for this question, the question was that there's some exercises in the slides that are repeated. So if you see a repeated exercise, you don't have to submit it twice, just submit it once.
No, I'm sorry about the question I asked because like my connection wasn't good. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I believe your question was about having creative freedom with the exercises. So what I said earlier was that as long as you follow the basic functionality, so let's say there's a circle that's growing in size or it's moving, make sure that it's doing that. But aside from that, you can add like different colors or like backgrounds or whatever, like make it more prettier, creative. That's up to you as long as it follows the functionality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? I guess we'll just be here then.
We will stick around till 1:25. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask us. After that, I will start putting the mentees into the waiting room. And we'll see you guys next week. Where do we submit the assignments? Again, there's a form in the chat. I'll paste it again. But if you go to the Schulich Ignite website, you should be able to see an option to submit the exercises. Again, use the Pythonic Lava form.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have some confusion which group I'm in. The last session I was in group 5, and now I was invited into group 13, although those two sessions by email I was told that my group is group 12.
Okay, so I just looked at the attendance sheet and you're in group 13 with Bhavna as your mentor. The reason why the groups were a little shuffled is because we had some mentors that were absent, so you might have like been put into another room just to balance out the mentor to mentee ratio. But like choose Pavna as your mentor when you submit the exercises. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also there are multiple exercises that have they give points, and there are only two submission questions for two links. Do I just put multiple exercises into those two links into the
Yeah,
same
you
file?
could do that, or you could just submit multiple links. So like I believe where you enter the link in the Google form, it doesn't limit you to just one link, so you can just, put